Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm going to do an all signs reading today. I'm going to pull some cards for each of the elements, so fire, water, air, earth, etc. And I want to start by saying that the energy is so strange today. It's like energetically, I'm just getting crickets. I've been pulling cards all day, trying to do readings, and it's just flatlined. And that's just strange to me because there's so much that's happening in the collective right now, right? I mean, waking up today, there were all kinds of news articles that were just, craziness is happening over here, over there, this, that, and the third. So I was thinking, should I do readings on that? But again, it's like there's no energy, which is so weird. But you would think that there should be like, this tremendous kind of message or this clear thing that wants to come through. But again, it's like I'm just brain fogged, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's very much so a flat line. So I'm trying to pull something out of here for the multiple signs and figure out what's going on. But let's try elements. So we'll start with fire, Aries, Leo, Sag, my fiery people. Let's see what the oracle card is for you today. It says, I am worry free. I release worry over things I cannot control. Instead, I choose to focus on things that are pleasing to me. When I release worry, I allow room for solutions to enter my life. I am worry-free. So maybe this is talking about all of the collective energy right now. There's a lot of things to worry about, right? I mean, reading everything this morning, I was a little worried. I was a little, did we just wake up on that timeline? But again, the energy, it's almost like saying don't react yet. This is the opening scene of the movie or something like that. So trust and believe there's going to be a plot twist or something like that. And I release worry over things I cannot control, right? I mean, there's a lot happening out there that it's like I can't stop it other than by not rendering it, right? Other than by not feeding it energy. Instead, I choose to focus on things that are pleasing to me, right? So what is actually happening in your environment, your reality, right? When you turn off all of the devices, you turn off the black mirror, what's actually happening in your world? And in terms of the things that are happening in your world too, what is actually happening and what do you just think is happening because maybe you've heard that it's happening or there's inklings or whatever it is, press release, you know what I'm saying? It's like, if you haven't laid eyes on it, how do you really know? If you yourself haven't experienced it firsthand and it's just happening off stage and you've heard, the peanut gallery talking about it, what's really going on, and is that worry occupying the space that something else could theoretically be occupying, right? Because it's saying when I release worry, I allow room for solutions to enter my life, right? So it's like it's almost like the solution requires disempowering the problem in the first place, right? The solution is disempowering the problem, where it's like, as long as it's linguistically designated as a problem, an obstacle, an adversary, whatever it is, that is the role that it will have to play in your script, right? Because we've assigned that value to it. But what if you flip the script around it, where it's like, it's not just, my brain wants to say puppet show. I don't think I've ever said that before, but it's like, is it real life or is it a puppet show? Right? That's it's like there's something, and I want to say as above, so below, right? So I came in here all the way from the top talking about the collective narrative and everything that we're seeing in the news this week. But again, as above, so below, in terms of your actual life, what is real and what is just a puppet show, right? What is just the fear threshold kind of reflecting fear back to you, right? Because that's like the mystery of the Quran's and the fear threshold, that it just picks up whatever it is that's in your subconscious mind and reflects it to you. But the puppet show is also the energy of Plato's cave, right? Plato's cave was just a puppet show. It was just shadows on the wall, right? Something like that. So it's like you're seeing the reflection or the shadow of something, and you're focused on whatever that thing is because it's been presented to you as valid. But is it? Is it really? Is it even coming from the direction that you think it's coming from? And it's also reminding me, take it as it resonates, is something I had seen recently about a particular thought exercise or psychology exercise where there was a group of people in a room and they were told, okay, scan the room and try to remember every single object in the room that's orange. So they scan, and then they close their eyes and it's like, tell me all the orange things. And they would say X, Y, Z. And then he would say, okay, open your eyes and see what you missed. Right. And then they could see, oh, I didn't notice that. I didn't notice this. I didn't notice that. So he'd say, okay, scan one more time for the orange. They'd scan, close their eyes, and he'd say, okay, now tell me everything in the room that was blue. They were only focused on orange. They couldn't see the blue. They didn't have any memory of the blue. It gives me the idea of like so many times when I've lost things and I've looked for the wrong color, and because I had the wrong color in my mind, I couldn't see the object that was right in front of me, right? Something like that. So it's like the color. How would we bring that back to what I was saying? Because I was talking about puppet shadows on the wall and things like that, and being focusing on that because that's what you've been told to focus on, or like something has validated that as like, look over here, this is the thing. So because you're locked into that, you're not actually seeing something else that probably is in your field of awareness. It's in your field of vision, right? But it's like you've been told to look at this other thing. And I'm just thinking like Aries, Leo, Sag, a lot of the Aries, Leo, Sag people that I know are very diligent individuals, right? Like I think of like my mother and fathers are both Aries and Leo, right? My mother is an accountant. My father was a grant writer. That was one of his many things that he did. But they're very, very like dot the I's, cross the T's kind of people. And it's like worry first, relax later is kind of their mantra. And I can even think of that with like one of my best friends growing up that was a Leo. He was very dot the I's, cross the T's, worry first, relax later, that kind of thing. So that could be a fire sign kind of thing where it's almost like the energy of being a first responder, right? Because my father was a firefighter. One of his roles as a firefighter was to do grant writing, right? So very diligent kind of things and paperwork. But it was very much so about being on high alert and looking for the problems, scanning for the issues, right? It's like I'm getting the visual of Titanic being in the crow's nest and scanning for icebergs, right? Something like that. But it's almost like if you're specifically looking for the iceberg, you don't see something else, right? I don't know what else to say. You don't see the Carpathia off in the distance. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's something like that I want to say. I am worry free. So let me just see if I can bring one more card into this for fire signs as an advice. We want to stay there. Consciousness. Interesting. Consciousness, I see this sometimes as like the ripple effect, right? Like the ripple effect of consciousness. And you fire signs, I would have to think, are probably like the Wi-Fi, right? Because I associate fire with energetic potential. If you're going to look at things from like the Kabbalistic perspective of the universe, they believe that first everything is ether, right? The ether is the all, and that's the angelic realm, the divine, yada yada. And then the first manifestation, the first world is fire, and it's the world of potential, imagination. It's abstract, but it's like when I read the tarot, I see the realm of wands as kind of being like the threshold between the divine and the physical, right? The imagination is the threshold between the divine and the physical. And it's like things get airdropped and passed through that realm of fire. It's like that's where it starts. And your superpower, at least one of your superpowers, is the ability to kind of like airdrop that to the rest of the collective, right? Like I'm seeing like a Wi-Fi tower, like sharing the signal. And I guess one aspect of it is protective in a degree, right? Because again, I'm like thinking of both of my parents. It's like both of their jobs were looking for problems, right? So my mother is an accountant. She's looking for problems in the numbers, right? She wants to make sure that everything is resolved. My father is a firefighter. He'd be looking for fires, I guess, to put out, right? Something like that. And almost having like a kind of like forensic approach to life, or something like that. But But I guess what it is that it's like you're tuned into the problems. You have the entire Rolodex, the entire encyclopedia of what potential problems there could even be. But what I think you're actually airdropping and channeling right now are solutions, right? So maybe if you're in a circumstance, if you find yourself in a circumstance, fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sag, but collective, we all got a little fire in us, right? That what you're being called to do is project the solution onto that problem, right? Because the other thing that I see with this consciousness card is all of these ripples, right? The ripple effect. And when numerous people, I see the ripple effect as like, imagine a pool of water and everyone is standing around this pool, throwing their stones into it, and each stone creates a ripple, right? So the surface of the water is just chaos right now. It's waves and splashes. Ultimately, the largest, most impactful stone or object that's thrown into that water is going to create the biggest splash that creates the dominant waveform that eventually organizes the surface into like an organized waveform pattern, right? Or chaos seeks order. So you see the chaos, fire signs. The reason why you're seeing it is because you're being called to project the solution onto it. And I mean literally project, like focusing your fiery energy like a laser through a microscope, through a magnifying glass, whatever, and just focusing the solution, visualizing the success, visualizing the healing, the solution, I guess, right? Because you can see the timelines. You see every timeline. You see every timeline where it goes poorly, and then you also see the timelines where it could work out. Focus on that, project that potentiality into the room, into the situation, airdrop it into all the conscious beings involved, and watch how the situation transforms and blooms. That is what I have for you, fire signs. Love it. Okay, now let's do the, what am I doing next? Water signs. Okay. Hello to the water signs. And I will say, if you're interested in a reading for your own, you will find all of that in the description box below. And that's the infomercial. Okay. Water signs. I am receptive, of course. I'm open and willing to new ideas. No, excuse me. I am open to new ideas and I'm willing to try different methods and consider alternative viewpoints. I welcome intellectual stimulation. I am receptive, right? So, water signs, that is absolutely your nature to be receptive to things. You know, water signs are typically considered to be the most empathic of all of the signs. But again, all 12 of the signs got a little water in them, right? So this is for the collective, really. But water signs specifically, I'm open to new ideas. So that receptivity, that empathic ability to receive information is definitely going to be your strong suit. But there's something new that wants to come in, right? Alternative viewpoints, different methods, intellectual stimulation, right? So what are the possibilities that you're leaving off the table? And in certain scenarios, are you leaving out the possibility of reform? Right? This reminds me of a conversation that I was having with one of my friends yesterday, where we were talking about how in order to experience good things, you need to believe that good things are possible, right? You need to believe that miracles happen in order to experience a miracle, because our belief system is ultimately like our filter of reality. It's kind of like the terms and conditions that we ourselves assign to reality, right? So if the terms and conditions are miracles don't happen, then that's what you experience, right? And and re-scripting reality, right? Because it's like you have to believe that you're lucky in order to experience that something is lucky. So one thing in terms of re-scripting is that there's a manifestation technique that I use, and I was thinking about putting this in its own video, but I'll put it here, and maybe I will put it in its own video. But it's this technique I use that I call, not that I call, but it's just balance is restored. What I say is balance is restored, and it happens during moments of frustration when you find yourself in one of those spirals where the script or the loop in your head is nothing ever works, I can't win, no good deed goes unpunished, etc., etc. Really negative loops like that, where it's like expecting an adversary, expecting some kind of wall, right? And so typically, it's like what I'll do in these moments when I find myself spiraling and thinking that things are just going to get worse, I'll pause and then I'll say, wait, balance is restored. I needed to experience some kind of obstacle, devastation, adversary, grief, whatever it was, because I was expecting it. I was feeding that thought form, right? Thought forms are made of consciousness, and I kept thinking or expecting that something negative would happen. It's like a Nine of Wands kind of energy. Nine of Wands is anticipating a tower, even if there's no evidence that that tower is coming, right? You could be in a positive moment, everything could be going great, but you find yourself in one of these tower moments, right? So, or at least you anticipate it, right? And then as soon as something negative starts to happen, you anticipate it to get worse and worse and worse and worse. So the analogy that I use is that it's like those silly moments when we do something like we drop our iced coffee first thing in the morning, right? You were going to take your first sip, it was going to make your day, you just needed that iced coffee, and you drop it. And there goes $6 and the rest of your day, right? And what I've come to learn is that in those moments when we drop the iced coffee, that is balance trying to restore itself. It's like divine intervention. The universe is doing everything it can to discharge the negative anticipation of the tower through the path of least resistance, right? Which can be something like the iced coffee. It's trivial, it's insignificant. It really doesn't have that much of a butterfly effect in terms of more negative things. But you absolutely can choose to let that ruin your day. If you would like for that iced coffee to ruin your day, it absolutely can. And then the next thing you go into, something else doesn't work, right? You go to, you know what I'm saying? It's like all of these little things that keep compounding. The frustration keeps kind of accelerating. And then before you know it, you're in one of those spirals. And it's like we all know a lot of people that that spiral becomes their identity, right? It's perpetual, not even perpetual, but competitive victimhood, right? It becomes this idea of identifying with no good deed goes unpunished, that it's always something, that something always kind of happens. So for yourself, water signs, what I think it's saying is because our emotional body is so powerful. I'm a Pisces, so I'm including myself in this. But because water signs or the watery nature of reality is so empathic and so spongy and so absorbent, it's very easy to absorb a lot of the frustration that's moving through the collective right now. We're also moving into a Mercury retrograde, right? So it's like things can be a little frustrating. But what I love to do during Mercury retrograde is as soon as I find myself thinking about it and something retrograde happens, I'll say, thank you, balance is restored. There's the Mercury retrograde energy that I was anticipating. I've experienced it, I've witnessed it, and now I can move on, and the rest of my day, the rest of my season can be better, right? And likewise, you can use this for everything. I drop the iced coffee and I say, thank you. I was expecting some sort of loss or devastation. I've been worrying about it. There it is. Now I can cross it off my list and I can move on to the next sequence in the algorithm, right? It's energy like that. And also kind of with I am receptive right now with everything that's so heightened, I would also say doing the best that you can do to try to make sure that you're distinguishing between yours and somebody else's, right? Maybe like taking one of those breaths and being like, okay, what am I feeling right now? Is this actually my energy or is this the energy of the collective, right? Because if you're in a relatively peaceful moment and everything's going peachy and all of a sudden the anxiety and the fear and all of that kicks in, is it really actually yours or is it just moving through your environment, right? Because we watery beings in general, but everybody, it's like we're almost like a bundle of exposed nerves, right? Like I see it as like one of those sea anemones or whatever, like those corals that look like plants and they kind of blow in the current, right? It's like that's kind of what the water signs are. They're blowing in the current and they're feeling all of this. And again, I hate to even just limit this to any particular sign because again, it's like we're all empathic. We all have all four elements. I get it. But this is the water sign portion, so whatever. Um, and I welcome intellectual stimulation, right? So basically, it's almost like I'm visualizing like a conference table where it's like you are the CEO of your reality sitting at the conference table and you have the rest of the C-suite, all of the advisors sitting around you. And there's a couple advisors right now that are piping up the peanut gallery, and they're trying to get you to worry about things, right? And it's almost like quieting those down and turning to the other folks at the table and saying, well, does anyone else have any other opinions, right? Because it's almost like the idea of having the devil on your shoulder, the angel on your shoulder, right? It's like the devil has a microphone, not even a microphone, a megaphone, and it's shouting these things so loudly. And it's almost like saying, okay, thank you for your piece, and handing the talking stick to, the angelic guidance and saying, okay, do you have anything that you'd like to share in terms of hopefulness? Because it's like, welcoming intellectual stimulation, it's like I hear it as like allowing yourself to think optimistically, right? Where it's like not talking like toxic positivity, but it's more or less like allowing yourself to think optimistically versus nihilistically, right? There's a lot of room for nihilism right now, but it's like examine your worldview. It's like, I'll tell you one thing for myself personally, going into COVID, okay, going into 2020, before any of it happened, this started in like fall of 2019. I was in such a nihilistic place that I prayed every day for the world to end. I was like, just torch the whole thing down to the studs. And I'm sure we have all been there on so many different occasions, right? But, and then when that whole thing manifested, I was excited for it, honestly. I mean, there was a part of me that was just like, oh, finally, like, let's just get it over with. And then maybe a little disappointed that, that's a whole nother video for another day. But I think you know what I'm saying. The nihilism is not helpful, because ultimately I do want to see this place become the paradise. I do wholeheartedly believe that this space that we currently occupy is and will be what we call the new earth, will be the paradise realm, will be where the golden age takes place, where everything works. I don't think it happens somewhere else. I don't think it comes from somewhere else. I think it all happens here, and it's like there has to be an allowance of that. So I just think like being very mindful of that nihilism, making sure that you're not scripting any kind of like hopelessness where it's like your solution is Armageddon, right? We've all been there where our solution is Armageddon and we're hoping that that's what plays out, and we don't need that, because it's like, whose script is that? Right? That's not my script. I didn't come in here with that script. We all incarnated knowing that there was going to be great transformation during our lifetimes. I'm sure we all had that knowing since we were children, right? That it was going to change and we were going to see the change. But it didn't come with, again, torching the whole thing. So I'll just put one more oracle for advice. What does this say? I'm preparing to move into my perfect place, which is on its way to me right now, right? So the new earth will be here, kind of affirming that wherever it is that you are, that it's like that place can be redeemed, right? That it's like, it's kind of like healing the ground that you're on, the environment that you're in, the thought form that you find yourself embodying or living, whatever it may be, that it's like that too can be redeemed and restored and remembered, right? Something like that. So that's what I have for you, water signs. And let me go into the air signs. Okay. And obviously, if you're interested in a private reading for your own, let me know. I got that in the description box below. Okay, air signs. I am receptive. Again, I love it. Okay, air signs. So you two are very receptive, right? So everything that I was just saying for the water signs absolutely applies to you guys. But let's take it a step further. What's next? I am love. I may not have always made the right choices, but I did my best. I have so much love to give, and everyone around me can feel it. I'm given a clean slate every single day to be the best version of me that I can be. I'm forgiven and I am love. Love that. Okay. Clean slate energy. Okay. I think that that's so important to remember right now, is that it's like, I genuinely think that our concept of karmic rollover and paying dues and having to pay for things that we've done is so inaccurate, but based on the way that our reality works, if that's part of your belief system, if you adopt that as part of the terms and conditions of your reality, then it does abide by those rules, right? So that's, I'm not saying, that we should throw the idea of karma out the window completely, but it's like, it does need to be acknowledged that typically when people lapse out of the Western religions, which come with the idea of original sin, they typically swing into the Eastern religions, which immediately replaces that with the concept of karma. What is the difference between karma and original sin? Right? Karma is the thing that tells people, like, well, you were born into poverty and sickness because you were, a bad person in the last life, and this is what you deserve. It's like, do we actually believe that? I don't believe that in any way, shape, or form. That that there's children out there that did something bad in a past life, like that's inaccurate. But again, it's like, it's the same idea. And the Catholics also had a system that was similar to karma, which they called merit, merit, merit. It was like the karmic credit system, basically. And it was like, the more merit you had, the closer you would sit to the throne of God in heaven, excuse me. And this is where the idea of buying your way into heaven came from back in the day, when people would literally give money to the church in exchange for like documents that said, like, okay, you now have this much merit. Like, it was literally a spiritual banking system. But the plural, so this is just an aside for anyone who's watching this, you get a nugget today. The plural of the word merit in Catholic Latin, so ecumenical Latin, was meric, MERIC. Meric. That means multiple merits, right? So it would be dollar versus dollars, right? You don't have $1 million, you have $1 million. You have 1 million meric. The way that the Latin language works is that if you add an A to the end of something, it makes it feminine. If you add an A to the beginning of something, it makes it negative, right? So you could think of asexual, right? It means no sexuality whatsoever. Americ or America means no karmic value in the eyes of God whatsoever. So if they tell you again that this place was named after some explorer who didn't even discover this place, think again, because I think that they were trying to do some kind of language magic that was just not kosher. So I am love. I may not have always made the right choices, but I did my best, right? So I think what I just said, that little story that I just said about where the name America might come from, in my own hypothesis, my own opinion, is that there's this spell over everybody, especially within the West, especially here, that it's like, that we're bad, right? That it's like we grow up thinking that there's something wrong with us for wanting to move towards particular desires, whatever they may be. And the example that I'll have for this is that I remember there was a time when I was visiting my family. I was just hanging out at my family's house. And one night, everybody had gone to bed. It was only like 9:30, 10 o'clock. It was still early. But I remember I found myself tiptoeing into the kitchen to get a glass of water. And I had so much fear, so much anxiety that I was going to get yelled at, that I was doing something bad, right? It was like taking me back to being a child. But all I was doing was getting a glass of water. And then I suddenly realized, I'm like, oh my God, this is where all of these programs come from, where it's like, why I can't make a move in any direction or yada yada, because it's like I always think that I'm doing something bad. But then it comes back to like being in kindergarten and you're in class and you just want to talk, you just want to socialize, you just want to hang out, you get in trouble. You were told that you were doing something bad, that you are bad, that you're disruptive, that you're not worthy, right? So it's like different things that have happened to us that are so subtle, that have like hindered our personal worthiness programs or something like that. And just examining that, right? Going back to, again, everything that I said in the water signs portion of it, where it's like distinguishing between yours and theirs, distinguishing between the truth and reality, and also kind of seeing this for other people, right? Because I do feel like there's almost like a theme going through the three elements I've done so far, is like acting as like the collective exorcists in a type of way, where it's like seeing people that are under the weight of different parasitic programs or mind entities, whatever you want to say. And that's a consent violation, right? It's like those people are not consenting to be programmed in the way that they are, to engage in self-sabotaging behaviors, especially when we see addictions and more extreme variations of it. But still, it's like a lot of these things that have been projected onto people have been projected without a degree of consent. So I do feel like this is also saying, Libra, beyond looking at yourself and absolving and redeeming yourself from these different concepts of worthiness and self-love, seeing that within other people. And basically it's like the medicine is unconditional love, right? It's like, I'm not trying to get too Christiany about it, but it's like the archetype of any of the ascended masters, right? Whether it was the Christ or the Buddha or the Magdalene, or are there others? There's got to be others. You know what I'm saying? Anyone that just went around loving people back to life, right? Where it's like, I think that that's the story of Lazarus, right? In the Bible, the story of Lazarus is the one who is resurrected from the dead, right? The idea is that the Christ went in and brought him back from the death. But there's a belief that in that ancient Aramaic culture, death referred to people who had lost their faith, right? So he would have been somebody that was a social pariah, a social outcast. He had been deemed americ, right? Having no worth in the eyes of God, and had either chosen to left the fold or was cast out of the fold, right? But like, he was excommunicated, he was an outcast. And the belief is that, and the word dead referred to that, right? It's like dead naming somebody. Just like the Scientologists do, right? It's like, if you leave that, they never speak of you again. You're dead. Um, and that, Christ redeemed this person and brought them back in, and because he was the teacher and the master, he could kind of go to everybody in the fold and say, like, this is your brother in arms, period, and anyone who has a problem can take it up with God, basically, is the situation. But that being said, it's kind of like, it reminds me of like 90% of the readings that I've done in the 3D. When people don't ask me a question, it's like I psychically can feel that their question is, has the universe given up on me? Because they're expecting something negative to come out of the cards. They're expecting to be yelled at by the universe and being told, like, we gave you these opportunities and you failed it and you squandered it and all these gifts and shame on you. And the cards never say that. The cards always say, we are so proud of what you've done with what you've done, in spite of everything that happened against you, the blindfolds that you had on, you kept playing the game, you tried, yada, 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 nothing happened in vain. There's still opportunity for you. We're still with you. It's kind of like projecting that silently, psychically, energetically onto all of those that are around you. Because air signs too, it's like, air signs really are the closest to the angelic realm. It's like you can see things a little bit clearer than other people can see. The belief about the air elementals is that it's like, when the air elementals look at the sun, moon, and stars, they see them in their true form, right? We see these planets, we see these, astral bodies, whatever. They see the truth. The air signs, you can see the truth, the redeeming quality in people. And that really is going to be part of your superpower in this process. But also, again, distinguishing between yours and theirs with the I am receptive, just remembering that. So thank you so much, air signs. If you're interested in your own private reading, hit me up in the description box below. I love to do a little Zoom, a little whatever. And what is next? I have do earth signs. What time is that? I got 33 on the clock. I love to see that. Earth signs. So this is going to be Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. Let's do it. Oh, I want to take this. What is this? I am focused. I'm focused on achieving my goals through deliberate actions. I take time to feel how it would feel to achieve my dreams. I visualize my desires through a lens of love and happiness. I am focused. I'm focused on achieving my goals through deliberate action. I take time to feel how it would feel to achieve my dreams. I visualize my desires through a lens of love and happiness. I'm focused. So I had to read that twice because for whatever reason, I couldn't focus on the card that says I am focused, right? My ADD was going crazy, and it makes me wonder if earth signs, if you're trying to focus on something, but there's a distraction in terms of, I don't even want to say a worry or a concern, because it's like, I don't even know what I was just distracted by. It was just, my mind was just kind of split onto something else that it's almost like when you're like, the best analogy, it wasn't happening in this now moment, but the best analogy is like when I'm doing readings and then all of a sudden my cat comes into the room and wants to play with me. It's hard for me to focus because I'm split into two different places. but then it's also talking about achieving your goals, visualizing and achieving your dreams, right? So it's like you're trying to visualize what the other side of the finish line looks like, right? It's, yeah, that's the visual that I'm getting. Okay, so it's like you're running a race, you're getting to the finish line, you're just getting to that point where it's like you can start to see beyond it. But instead of focusing on that finish line, you keep being distracted by the crowd, right? Like if it was like a 5K race, like the Boston Marathon, right? Like there's giant crowds towards the finish line. And it's like that itself is becoming distracting, but it's not, it's like distraction by like silly things, right? Because it's almost like, there's some kid that's holding an inflatable SpongeBob balloon, and it's like that in and of itself is what's distracting you, right? It's almost like turning to like get a second look at it or something like that. It's like things like that. But I'm focused on achieving my goals through deliberate action, right? So it's like, because you are an earth sign, right? It's like I feel like you would prefer a plan, right? Tangibility, right? A kind of knowing of what's on the other side of the finish line before I even decide whether or not I want to run the race, right? There's an aspect of that. And I honestly want to say what it's saying, earth signs, is that if there's something that you're trying to manifest, but it feels like the manifestation is stalling or lagging, even though it's like being on a treadmill when you get to the finish line, right? Where it's like, running in place or something like that. It could be because you're being distracted by other things, for example, things in the media, or it could just be random doom scrolling, right? We all do the doom scrolling, but being distracted by something that's occupying the portion of your mind that should be rendering the other side of the finish line, right? The other side of the happy ever after, right? So it's like, what happens, what does 10 years after the 10 of Cups moment look like, right? Because the 10 of Cups is, it's the end of the fairy tale, right? Which is that, and they all lived happily ever after. But it's like the story doesn't just end there, right? This is always something, shout out Lisa M. Harrison. She always talked about that. It's like the story doesn't just end with happy ever after, right? What happened to the prince and the princess? It's like, did they wind up having children? Did they wind up getting a second mortgage? Did they, like, something had to have happened, right? So thinking, allowing yourself to think about that. And I think, yeah, because I don't know what exactly this means, but it's like earth signs would be associated with things like rocks, right? There are rocks on this earth that are millions of years old. So it's like earth signs have the longest, not exactly the longest lifespan, but it's like in terms of your ability to see up and down the timeline, it's like you can see in these further stretches because it's like a slower, I'm thinking of like the Ents from Lord of the Rings, those tree people, because the tree people had like these 1,000-year lifespans, so they spoke very slowly, and like to speak one sentence might take like a week or something like that. So it's almost like your process of visualization might be something that is, I don't want to use the word slow, but it's like it's not an immediate thing. It's something that kind of needs to be pulled on and sat with and gestated and digested or something like that. And it's like all of those things that are the distractions are like these little fleeting things, right? Where it's like I feel like what it's saying is like, Taurus, like, allow yourself to unplug for a moment and take time, because time is the material that you work with. That's what I want to say. It's like, whereas other people are under the jurisdiction of time, time is under your jurisdiction. I don't know why I want to associate that with the Hermit card, but I'm seeing the Hermit card in my mind, which is Virgo. But I often see the Hermit as being over it, not in it, or over it, not on it, of it, in it. You know what I'm saying? But outside of time. And it might take time to digest whatever it is that you're rendering, right? But you're being called to render what's on the other side of the finish line, right? Not just the process of getting to the finish line itself. It's like I feel like fire signs are working on that or something like that. But getting what's beyond the finish line, just visualizing the happy ever after, right? If we were going to turn the happy ever after into a book or a series that had 7 books in it, what would that story be like? Right? Because one thing that's been coming up for years now is the idea of rendering a story without an adversary. What does that even look like? And I feel like Earth Signs, I feel like you might be the secret to that. And once you guys fully unlock that or digest that, it's going to go boom, like 100th monkey throughout the collective. Everyone is going to understand how to operate without an adversary, right? Because it's like every book is driven by some sort of adversarial force, right? Whether it's nature or another human being or something like that. It's like that is the catalyst for the story, right? What does this want to say? I'm attracting my ideal job right now, right? Ooh, so this gives me the idea of um, I'm sure you've had this moment when you've been in a workplace environment and thought to yourself, this place could be so much more efficient if everybody was doing jobs that reflected their strengths and not just like what they happen to be doing, right? Because some people, they are just numbers people, and that is their strength, that is their atmosphere. They live, breathe, and eat numbers. Some people are phone call people where it's like they can handle talking to customers and calling and doing all of these things. Some people are, you get what I'm saying. It's like some people really, really, really love to clean, right? Where it's like that's their thing that they just kind of enjoy doing. It's like their meditation or whatever is to just do a deep cleaning or something like that. And it's like everything is equally valuable. Nobody should have a greater or lesser salary, but it's like if everybody was where they were supposed to be versus where they are, things would be so ideal. And it's like I feel like Taurus, you're playing a major role in that, where it's like you are the curator, you are the casting director. Taurus, you are the casting director. Why am I saying Taurus specifically? I'm sorry, Earth signs, Earth signs, Earth signs. You are the casting director. I have Taurus written on my thing because it's Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. Sorry about it. But again, we all got a little Taurus in us. We all got a little earth, water, air, fire, etc., etc. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it. Thank you guys for watching this. If anybody's interested in a private reading, hit me up. We can do a Zoom. We can do whatever. But I look forward to hearing from you guys. And again, thank you for watching. I'll see you at the next one. Bye, y'all.